I'm going to do a quick kind of intro training and make sure people can get logged in and get you guys started using Remind. And then we're going to have them follow up with a more in-depth, deeper dive where we can come back with specific questions and get some more in-depth answers from them. But what we'll cover today will be a lot of the basics that you'll need on getting logged in, getting the phone app, doing a quick website orientation of the Remind website, claiming your classes that are in there, manually creating some classes, attaching things to the messages that you send out, translating messages, scheduling messages for like future deliveries, and using some of the resources inside Canvas, give you kind of some best practices for activities, clubs, PLCs, those sorts of things, setting up office hours, showing you how to use Remind to make voice phone calls so you can have an anonymous phone call with a parent without giving out your cell phone number. And for admin and office staff, you will see how to do emergency or urgent messages that would need to go out. So let's just dive right in. And the Remind sent me this kind of template. So I'm going to follow this loosely, and it should cover everything that we're going over. But you can see they have like, it's easier than ever to get started with Remind. Well, we've had Remind for a while, and the elementary is using it pretty well. The teachers are using it. We have rostered the classes. So that means if you're a teacher, your classes should show up inside your Remind account automatically. And once you get logged in, you just have to claim your classes. But really the purpose of Remind is not to add more to your class work or to your load. It's really to engage communication and to make what you're doing with your students already easier, right? We heard a lot from the teachers when we had to do our remote learning that communication was difficult, and people were trying email, and they were using all these different platforms, and we knew that we had to get a solution that allowed two-way communication. People don't want to just have to go look for information. They don't want to have to go to a website to find it. People want information to come to them, and Remind kind of resolves that for education. It helps us to be compliant, where we can have a record of the conversation between teachers and students, or coaches and athletes, and even parents and teachers, or parents and administration. We have that accountability where we can go back. If there's ever a question, we can go back and look at those communications that are happening. But it enables us to have those communications. So we're not just afraid to, not communicate because we don't want to worry about legal ramifications. And Remind really was built for education. So it's very targeted. There are hundreds of thousands of schools across the country that are, or students that are using Remind, students and teachers that are using Remind specifically for school and sports. So Remind gets feedback from teachers, and you may get surveys where they will ask you to participate. But of the teachers that are surveyed, they say that about 81% of the teachers say that Remind with two-way communication leads to better student outcomes. And we know that. We know that the parents that come to events and they talk to the teachers, they perform better than the parents that we never hear from. So Remind kind of has this pyramid strategy for communication. They expect district communication to be less frequent than school level communication, and school level communication to be less frequent than the communication that happens from the teachers in the classroom, which is the way it should be. And what we're seeing is that email's no longer a valid solution, or even phone calls, really, for that matter. We're finding that parents aren't answering the phone, and I'm sure you guys have experienced that. Even if you try to get a hold of parents, they're just not responding, or they're not reading the messages. Even notes that are sent home in packets that are generally not read. But 99% of text messages are opened, and 90% of the messages are read within 3 minutes of them being received. So Remind is a very effective way to engage our shareholders, whether it's students or parents. Teachers say that 85% of 85% of the teachers say that using Remind saved them time during the day, and 65% said that it increased parent participation in events. And I don't know, I haven't talked directly to the elementary teachers, but it would be interesting to see if that kind of, if that's what we're seeing from the teachers that have been using it. So to get started, what there's some things that we'd like everyone to do within the next couple days, and that would be logging into your account if you haven't already, claiming classes if you have classes in there, and setting up your notification preferences. And I will go over those things now. But before I do, I want to jump into a little bit of vocabulary, because some of the vocabulary that Remind uses is not exactly the way that I may refer to things, or the way that we refer to them here in the school. So I just want to cover, so that if you're looking through any of the documentation, or in future training when Remind is teaching us things, I want to make sure that we know we're all on the same page. What we might call a messaging group, Remind calls a class. So it doesn't matter whether it's a football group, or whether it's a PLC, or whether it actually is a class. Any group communication within Remind is listed as a class. The words messages and announcements are used kind of interchangeably in Remind. So if you're looking at documentation, just know that there's not really any difference between messages and announcements. Announcements are kind of given the preference of it's more of a one-way thing, right? We're sending out our newsletter from the building level, and we don't really expect people to respond back, but they potentially could. And it's important to note that staff are listed as teachers in Remind. So basically, if you're an adult associated with the school, you're listed as a teacher within Remind. And any child associated with the school is a student, even if they're not a student. If we added preschool in and those kids are not really students at the school, they would still be referred to as students within Remind. So knowing that, let's talk about how to get logged into Remind. So there's two ways to do it. You can do it through their web page. You can just go to remind.com and log in, or you can click on the Remind tile that's in the portal. And whichever way you go, you want to make sure that you click the login with Google button. You'll just single sign in, so you don't have to worry about a new password or anything. And that will get you signed in to Remind the first time. After you're signed in, you're going to, if you have classes that have been rostered automatically for you, then those classes will show up saying that you have new classes that you need to claim. We did notice that a lot of teachers had claimed classes, but some teachers hadn't claimed all of their classes. And that's okay. If you have a study hall or something that you're not going to do messaging with, you don't have to claim those classes. They're just going to show up in your dashboard saying that you have classes there to claim that you could message through Remind if you want to. And the third thing you're going to want to do is go to your notification settings and make sure that you have the ways that you want to be connected through Remind set up in there. So I'm going to go to Remind and just show you what this looks like here. Let me do. So I'm already logged in, but I want to give you kind of a quick overview of what you're going to see when you log in. On the left-hand side over here, I have all of the schools because I'm an administrator level account in Remind in all of the schools. So they all show up for me. Teachers, if you log in, you're only going to see the school that you're associated with. Administrators may see more than one location over here, but essentially you're going to have your schools listed here and the classes that you can manage in here. Being an admin, I can see some of the some of the other messages that have gone out. And this is some of that accountability we were talking about earlier. So you can see that we're sending out messages, and it's saying at the district level, 794 messages were delivered yesterday. So there's some statistics we can look at in here. But in here, your name will show up at the top. And if you click this little down arrow here, you can go to your account settings. In here, this should be filled out for you automatically. And this very top piece right here, if you edit this, this is how your name will show up in Remind. So Rusty had set hers to Miss Piggy. So if you look up Rusty in Remind, it literally says Miss Piggy for her contact name. So that's important for you to know. If you change this, make sure that you've got something in there that you want people to see. Initially it came up as Chris Rule for me, and I changed it to Mr. Rule. If you go down to your next little item here, it's notification preferences, and you can see in here that my email is selected automatically as on. My cell phone number was entered in here, and I have that shut off because I have the Remind app on here. And you can see that down here where it says Android. This is my Android phone, and because it's showing different information about the phone, I just know this is the app. So I have it turned on. You don't have to receive text messages if you have the app on your phone. In fact, if you have both of them on, you receive it twice on your phone. This is my iPad, is this one here, and I have it set to off, and I could even have my desktop computer be on here. So you want to make sure that you come in here and set where you want to receive messages. Then down below, when we talk about doing phone calls in Remind here in a little bit, this is where you'll want to check if you want to receive phone calls through Remind or not. And this is your cell phone number with the Remind app on your phone of where that is going to come. And at the very bottom, you'll have office hours right here. And I would suggest you set this, especially if you're going to receive calls through Remind. What this does is it essentially filters the times that calls will come in. So if you have only 1 hour a week that you want to say, I can receive phone calls from parents, you could go and set that in here. Mine is set up from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. I don't have Thursday checked. If I decided I want to enable Thursday, I simply do that and it's done. What happens is if someone responds to a message and tries to call you through Remind and it's outside of the office hours, it just immediately says this person is outside of their office hours. Please try to contact them later or during their office hours. So it just essentially, your phone doesn't ring or anything. It just blocks it immediately. So make sure that you go in there and set up your notification settings. That's going to be real important for you to have there. Let's look at the mobile app. I've got my phone here and I should be able to share this on my screen. Let me see. Okay, this should be my phone. Make sure it's working. Yep, okay. So I've got my phone here and I've got a shortcut to the Remind app. You can just get the Remind app through the Play Store or through the Apple App Store. When you open up Remind, it looks very similar to the web interface. If I click this little hamburger menu over here, this will slide out, and this is the same as that left-hand screen on the website right here. So it's the same thing. So you'll see your school that you're associated with, and when you're in here, you can just click this new message. You pick
Chris,
what kind of.
See your phone.
Oh, you can't see the phone?
Oh.
Hang on a second. I bet I have to share my whole screen. Let's try this. How about now?
Do you have chat pulled up right now?
There. Now I've got a wallpaper of my winter scene pulled up. Can people
No,
see that?
right now we see your chat window is open.
Oh, this one. How about now?
Now I can see it.
Okay. Sorry about that, guys. Thanks, Rusty. Oh, I would add too, if you guys have questions, throw them in the chat box. Rusty's going to barge in if she starts seeing some questions in there. Feel free to interact. I don't want to get to the very end and then have a bunch of questions that we didn't get answered. So if you have questions, throw them in the chat and we'll pause every now and then and answer those. And Rusty will remind me. So this is my phone here, and I have a shortcut to Remind right here. If I open up the Remind app, and I'm going to click this little hamburger menu that's up in the corner right here. This menu right here is the same as the menu that's on the website. And you can do almost everything in the app that you can do on the website. There's only a few things you can't do. I'd say probably 99% of your time, you're just going to want to use the app on your phone. And you're probably going to want to encourage your parents and students just to put the app on there. We don't know what students' cell phone numbers are generally, but if they have the app on their phone, you can message them and they still get it. They get it through the Remind app rather than having to know what their cell phone numbers are. We found when we asked the high school students for their cell phone numbers, only about maybe 30% of the students were willing to give the school their phone number, which is fine. If we want to communicate with them and they want to be in touch, then I would say we'll just have to encourage students to put the Remind app on there. But I'll go to the elementary school here, and you can see I have some, because I'm an administrator, I can see some of these, I can see some of the announcements, but it's very easy. You just click this new message button here and you pick what kind of announcement, whether it's an urgent announcement, a regular announcement, a group conversation, or an individual message. And you can treat this kind of like a chat engine. I could say I want to do an individual message and I'm going to search for a user, and I could put in Rusty, and it looks like she's changed it. We'll say Miss Rusty. If I send Rusty a message right now, she'll get it through her Remind app. If I wanted to make a phone call, there's the little button that we could use to call. And if it was within her office hours, then her phone would ring. The difference between this urgent announcement and an announcement, teachers, you probably won't see urgent announcement unless you have an elevated, right? Urgent announcements, even if parents and students have opted out, if they have replied stop to the texts that are coming, an urgent announcement overrides that. If we have any sort of contact information for those parents, it's going to go to them. So the use case scenario would be power went out, we have to send kids home early. We're going to send out an urgent announcement letting parents know that kids are going to be coming home. Or maybe a bus got in an accident and we need to notify all those parents that everyone's fine. We just want to let them know right away. And if they happen to have opted out of the messages, we want to make sure they get it. So that's when you might use an urgent announcement. But it's very easy to do a group conversation. You can either just build it on the fly, add the people in here that you want, or you can choose your class. So the phone app is very easy to use and very similar to everything that you would do on the website, but you can do it either way, whichever way you're more comfortable with. But I think everyone's got a phone and most people are going to want to do it that way. So sending an announcement, let's do it. Let's show how to do this basically from the website. It's very easy. You are going to, there's a messages tab right in here that we're going to go to. And you'll see that in the screenshot. And you're just going to click new message. Once you've clicked that, it's going to bring up a list of potential classes or contacts that you're going to send it to, and you just click the checkbox of which ones you want. So if I was going to do a new message or a new announcement here for, I'm clicked on the middle school, but I can I can select other locations here. So I could say, I want to send it to the middle school, and I want to send it to all the students, maybe the students and the parents. Continue. And it adds those contacts in the top. You type your message in here, whatever you want, and just simply hit the send button. But I do want to talk a little bit about these three little icons that are right here. You can add content, so you can add a photo or a video, a file. You can add something from Canvas, something from Google Drive. And I've not used the Google Classroom feature, so I'm not exactly sure what you can attach from Google Classroom. But it'd be interesting to see from some of the teachers at the elementary that are using Google Classroom, if you've used this. That would be interesting to see how that works. But maybe you want to attach a newsletter. Oh, looks like someone is calling me. I'm going to go ahead and decline that message here. It's showing up on my computer here.
There are a couple of questions, Chris.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
One is, if you send a message or call outside of office hours, does the recipient still get the messages later on?
So if you send it, if a parent's responding to a message that you sent out and they're doing it by text, yes, you'll still see that later on. The office hours is more so that if you're receiving a phone call, you won't get interrupted. Obviously you don't want to have your office hours set during the day when you're teaching and then have your phone ringing, while you're teaching and interrupting you. So you might say, well, I have planning 7th hour, so I'm going to change it so that I can receive phone calls 7th hour. But parents can always respond by by text, and it'll save it in the app there for you.
Okay, and then Virginia, does that answer your question? Yes. Okay, and then Ron said that teachers don't have the announcement option. He's looking on an iPhone and says that option's not there for teachers, not
Right.
the urgent.
Yeah, teachers generally don't have the urgent announcement. If, like in Ron's case, where he's a coach, we might decide that we need to give that to some teachers. Like maybe coaches need to have that. We'd have to decide administratively here within the school who gets that and who doesn't. Right now, only office staff and building administrators have the option to send urgent announcements. That's probably something we need to discuss with admin and see who does need to have that option. So the only thing that like Ron right now would be able to do would be to send a regular announcement. So if someone has opted out, they won't receive those messages. And I think that's the default option, but I could definitely see where there would be sometimes when some teachers, we'd have to give you kind of elevated permissions in order to have that urgent announcement feature.
Okay, and then there's a question on, if you use Remind as a parent and a teacher, do you have to have 2 separate accounts? And if so, is it simple to use the app for both accounts as far as receiving notifications?
Okay, so that's a really good question. And I would say you don't have to have 2 separate accounts, but I know there are teachers here who are also parents, and they do have 2 separate accounts because they may have set up Remind with a personal email before we bought it for the district. So in that case, they do have 2 accounts. I don't know how easy it is to switch back and forth between the accounts. Looks like on the web interface, you have to definitely log out. On the phone, I'm guessing you probably also have to log out. Yeah, it looks like I'm going to my account settings here. So I'll go back. I just clicked on the little gear here and went to my account settings. It doesn't have, like on Android, you might have a little account avatar that's in the upper right for email, and you can switch back and forth between your different email accounts without having to log out. It does not look like that's the case in Remind. So I would say if you do have 2 accounts, you maybe kind of need to decide how you want to use that. I mean, you're more than welcome to use the school email as well. The trick there would be as if for some reason, maybe your, thing won't work at the school, the whole time your kids are here. Maybe you're just subbing in the lunchroom or something, and you don't want to use your school account. Then you might want to keep them separate. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like there's an easy way to receive messages on both accounts without logging out and back in on Remind.
And I know, I'll add a little bit to that as well. And Claire has a good point. She has hers all in one account, and it's easy to keep separate on the app.
Oh, good.
And that's as long as when you're a parent and if you use a separate email account as a parent, when you signed your student up, when you registered your student, that's the email that goes into Remind. That's the email that I'm pulling, is the one that you use to register your student. So if you do, or if you're using a separate email, I use a separate email. I use my personal email as a parent. So I do have 2 accounts, and I do have to log out on my school account and then log in as on my personal account to get those notifications. So it's really however it is you registered your student within Powerschool. I don't know if that confuses everybody, but that's what I pull.
I think that's good info, because I don't have any kids in school anymore, so a lot of those questions I can't answer. Let's do a quick poll here real quick. I'm just gonna see if everyone could answer, the ones that are attending today, if you're currently using Remind. I'm just kind of curious to see what the numbers are like here. I didn't do this by location. I really thought about maybe saying, yes, I'm at the elementary, yes, I'm at the middle school, yes, I'm at, the different locations, but I didn't. I just was wanting more to see who's using it and who's not. So let's go about another 10 seconds here. I've got almost everybody responded here. Yep, everybody has answered. So let's end the poll and I'll share the results here. It looks like almost half and half, really. 54% answered yes and 46 answered no. So I would say, I know a lot of times we get these new technologies in place, and the biggest hurdle is just getting started using it. I would say, like we said, first step is get in, log in, make sure that you can get logged in. If you can't, let someone in tech know. Put the app on your phone if you want to do that, and then start doing a few messages, even if it's the kind of the one-on-one chat stuff back and forth, just to get a little bit familiar. It really is pretty easy to use once you get in there. You don't require a lot of training on it. It just, we just wanted to make sure that everybody felt comfortable on getting in here and using it. So I'm gonna go back to my training slide here to make sure that I'm still on task. Let's go back to my messages. So we were sending a message here. Let me actually type a real thing here. So we talked about adding things, attachments to your message, very similar to how you would do an email. If you were going to send out a newsletter, you'd use the file. The second button here is translate. So because I have selected the middle school, Remind is going to look at what the native language selection is, and this may not be getting pulled in from Powerschool, but even if it is getting pulled in from Powerschool, users that are in here, you can set what your native language is in Remind on your Remind account, and whatever that native language is that the target has set, it'll send a message automatically in that native language. So if you have Spanish-speaking parents and students that have selected Spanish as their primary language in their Remind setting, it'll automatically translate that message and send it to them. Even if we had Korean students, it would do the same thing. All of the languages that are on Google Translate, because this uses Google Translate, it'll automatically translate those and send them out in whatever native language they've selected. So you don't have to worry about sending multiple messages. And the third one here is to schedule it. So if I didn't want this message to go out right now, I could schedule it to say, I want this message to go out tomorrow at, I don't know, probably not 2:15 in the morning, let's say at 10 a.m. And then you can schedule it and write your message ahead of time, but have it sent later. So you don't have to worry about doing it if you want to send something out later. So sending a message it really is very easy. I mean, it's just a matter of you select, click new message, click who it's going to, type your message. You probably don't even have to worry about the attachments or anything, and hit send, and it goes. We talked about sending attachments and translating messages, scheduling messages. I do want to touch a little bit more on the phone calls, but are there any other questions so far on sending a message? I'm glancing at the chat. It doesn't look like it. Okay, so let's talk about phone calls. I'm going to share this slide deck with everyone so you'll have it too. And there's a link in here on how to make a voice call. This is Remind's help desk article that is full of screenshots and animations exactly on how to make a voice phone call. And really, it is kind of neat. The only drawback I would say that you're going to find is that if parents ask for your phone number, there's not a number you can give them. You can't tell them this is what my Remind phone number is. There's no way to see that. What it does is when you place a phone call, if I were to call Rusty through Remind, it grabs a phone number, a random phone number that's not my cell phone number. It just has a random phone number, and it calls Rusty, and it might say it's coming from it's definitely going to say it's coming from some weird phone number that we're not familiar with, right? And usually we think that's a spam call, and your parents might think that as well. It might say it's, a 850 phone number, and they may not answer it. But if they don't answer it and you leave a voicemail and they end up calling that back, it does go back to you. So even though you don't know what the phone number is that is showing up, if they call that number, it goes back to your Remind account. Now, I don't know whether that number changes later or not, but it does work, and it is anonymous behind the scenes so that you can receive phone calls on your phone without handing out your phone number. And it does work on both Android and on Apple phones. So this, and I'll share, like I said, I will share this because there's a little bit to it, and you'd probably want to read through all of this. And I would suggest maybe practicing, make a phone call with someone and go through and do this. Once you do it one time, it's not going to seem that bad. This looks long because there's a lot of screenshots in here because it's very precise, and it shows that it's exactly what to click on. And it looks like Ron says that when he calls someone, his phone comes up as Remind. So that's great. I think on mine, on my Android, it didn't have a caller ID associated with it. So I'm not sure if that's an Apple thing or if it might be my carrier, it might be Verizon, I'm not sure. But this is where you would go to call from here. And this is what one might show up as, saying it's coming from Millersburg, Ohio. The one thing I would say is if you're expecting to get a phone call and you have your office hours set from 3 to 4 and you get one of these weird phone call numbers, it's probably a parent calling right through Remind trying to get a hold of you. Hopefully it's not someone telling you that your vehicle warranty is expired. I see there's a message here that says, how do we correct their information if it's not put in somehow? So
I'm answering both of those questions. There's another one above that from Lisa on where I pulled that information from.
Okay, perfect. So really the short answer is it's in Powerschool, right?
And I pull that from the contact page. So in registration and school forms that we use, we have the contact page, and we have Parent Guardian 1 and Parent Guardian 2. I pull the information for both of those. for 1 and 2. If there's more than that, I do not pull 3 or 4. I only pull the first 2. And then to fix that information, if it is wrong, you just need to contact the secretaries at the school, and the secretaries can go in and fix it for them if a parent needs to fix it.
And we'll make sure that the secretaries get a deeper dive training into this admin panel, because they can come in here and see the people. And you can even see parents in here. And when you click on a person, there's a whole bunch of information that teachers can't see, right? It's partly to protect, both ways, protect the teacher and to protect the parents. But we want to make sure that secretaries can see it in here, and they can see and see if something does need corrected, right? Sometimes it's just a typo, but we would want to correct it in Powerschool to get that updated rather than just correcting it in here. But parents can also change that. So if they change their phone number and they put the Remind app on there, they can just change it in Remind without notifying the school that that the number has changed. And that's going to potentially be an issue. I think we just need to make sure that we let parents know that if they change their contact information, they need to let the school know as well. But we run into that battle already, right? They get a new phone and they don't tell us, and then we try to call the old one and it doesn't work. So, any other questions that we need to answer here before we move on to the next part?
There's one more in there from Sandy. My parent account is already set up with my personal email, and my new teacher account is set up using my school email. Can I change my parent account information so that it merges with the teacher account?
So you can merge accounts, and I have not done it, but I do know that Jake Rich, and I think that David Thrash did. They had accounts, Remind accounts with other schools. I'm going to actually go back to the slide deck here. The very last page on this talks about where to get support. You, of course, can contact us in tech, but you can contact the Remind support directly as well. And their documentation on their website is pretty good. So if you go to help.remind.com or use this shortcut, you can look that up. And I know there's an article in here directly on merging accounts. This is actually the contact center. Let's see. Merge duplicate. There's information in here. How do I access the parent? So there's quite a bit of information in here on how to do that exactly. And all of these that are in here they're very similar to that one about the voice. It's got screenshots. This one even has animations that's showing you exactly where to click, what to change. So you can definitely do that. And if you need help with it, well, I mean, we can help you do that too. But David Thrash figured it out, so it's got to be pretty easy. No, I'm just kidding.
Ron sent a screenshot. Ron, that screenshot is just to show, is that to show us how the call comes in?
Yep, that's all I was trying to do.
Okay.
Perfect. So here's what Ron sent. I'll just share it with everyone with the group right now. This is how his is showing up on an iPhone. So it's nice that his does say this. Mine, like I said, on an Android, it does not say Remind. It just has the phone number. But I do know it's definitely gonna be a non-Wyoming phone number when it comes in. Thanks, Ron.
Yeah, I just had a parent call me today, and that's what it looked like.
Perfect. So Ron, did you set up office hours and stuff on yours?
Nope, but I'm going to.
Good plan. So that really is most of what I wanted to cover today. I want to go back to our list of things that I said I wanted to cover and make sure that we went over everything. But I did want to remind everyone that we have purchased a training from Remind. They just couldn't do it today. So we wanted to make sure that we could help everybody get in. And like I said, we want you to get in, claim your classes, try to send a few messages, get to playing with it, start putting a list together of the questions or things, or maybe even use scenarios on how you want to use that, and let Rusty or me know, because as we schedule this training with Remind in the near future here, we want to make sure that all of those questions get answered and we get that deeper dive look into how to really optimize it. Go out and use that help center. Just go to help.remind.com and make sure that that it's going to work for you. We want to make sure that this is a tool that is that you're going to be able to use, and we know that it is. It's just a matter of getting in and playing with it. And send a test announcement to some of your families. But I do know there was one thing that I wanted to cover and I didn't go over because I don't have a slide that was specifically on doing this. But I had said that I was going to show you how to create your own class, right? So I'm in the Bondurant Elementary School, and I'm going to go to classes here, and I can see the classes that are already synced in elementary. And I picked Bondurant because it's just Karen and it's a short list of classes. So I can see the classes that were synced automatically from Powerschool, and Rusty updated this here in the last few days to make sure that all of any semester 2 changes would be in there as well. But if you want to do a new class, you just go over here on your left-hand bar and click add a class. You can either join an existing class or you can create a new class. And let's say that I'm just going to make a class. Maybe I'm going to make one for tech, right? I'm just going to create a tech group that I'll add me and the tech team in. It's going to create a class code that we can give parents or anyone that we want to join. And then you're going to pick what school it's in. You're probably only going to have the school that you live in. Some teachers would have more than one, right? Band might have Pinedale Elementary, high school, and middle school. But you can click whatever school that class is going to live in. In my case, if I was going to do a tech one, I would probably say it's just under the school district. And I'm only going to message people 13 and older. Because our student data lives on the Remind servers, we have to make sure that we comply with COPA, which is the Children's Online Protection Act. And that just says that kids that are under the age of 13, we have to protect more of their information than we do for kids that are older than 13. So you might see, especially at the elementary, you might see your kids are listed as just by first name, last initial. That's part of this 13 and older. Some of the teachers at the middle school will probably see kids both ways. You might see kids that have maybe there's an 8th grader that's older than 13 and they have their full name listed, but you have an 8th grader that's younger than 13 and they have just their last initial. That's why it will show up that way. In this case, I would say I'm only going to message people 13 or older to make sure that we've got it set to meet compliance. And there I've created the class, but I don't have any people in it. So I can go over to the people tab on my class that was created. And you can see the class showed up right over here underneath classes I own. And right now it's showing everyone, which there's just me. But I just click add people right here. And I could just type people in. And put her email. And I can click add. Alternately, if you have a spreadsheet, either a Google Sheet or a Microsoft Excel, and you have this information, if I had names in the first column and phone or email in the second column, I can highlight those columns, put my cursor right here and paste it, and it just fills in this all the way down. Even if it's 100 fields, it just fills that all in, and then you click add people and it immediately adds them into the group. And now Rusty should have received a notification saying that she is now a member of the tech class. And there she's showing up right here. She's already shown up as an admin because she's listed as an admin for Bondurant. So that's a simple way to do it. Secretaries can export student information quickly out of PowerSchool. So there are no classes, for example, for like, let's say, all of 11th grade for the high school. There are ways that the administrators can message the entire school. That's what I think Greg Legursky and Nora Farrand at the elementary school are doing when they send out announcements, is they're just sending a new message to the entire school, but there's no subset in there that's saying, I want to send this just to 5th grade. And if we wanted to do something that's just to there, it's not going to be automatic from PowerSchool. It's not a class that's pre-built. So it takes a little bit of legwork initially to create that class, but essentially we can go into PowerSchool, do that quick export, pull all the student data out of there and create that group. And because the students are already in Remind, you don't have to worry about grabbing parents and students and all this other stuff. You can just create it with the students and it'll automatically link them to the parents because they're already tied together as the students are in there. So it's just a matter of doing that first creation in your class of adding people with an import from there. So I know I didn't go into full detail on that, but that probably doesn't, most teachers are not going to want to do that, but you could. I think you can do an export out of your grade book the same way and then formulate that and paste it in here. Okay, do we have any questions? For those of you grades 6 and up, they're using Canvas. I don't know if you have noticed, but you can, there's a Remind link directly in Canvas. Let me go to the portal and I will go into a course and I will show you what I mean. I'm logging into Canvas here and I think it shows up on mine. I'll do my test tech course that I have. So on the left-hand side, when I'm in my course, down here toward the bottom, there's a link right here, and it should be on everybody's courses in Canvas, send on Remind. As soon as I click this, essentially what it does is it opens up Remind and puts me right into the message area without leaving Canvas. So then the nice thing is it's just all right there encapsulated together. It doesn't have the recipients picked automatically. So it wasn't like it took the people who are enrolled in my test tech course and selected those as recipients. I would still have to go and select them, right? Maybe it's my tech group. And then I'd have to type my message. It's the same thing as what we're seeing on the others, and you can attach things onto it and either send it or schedule it. But you can do it directly within Canvas without having to go to another window or getting your phone out to do it. It's like there's some new messages. Do we have any other questions? Looks like we do have one about a semester-long class. Do you see that, Rusty?
Yeah, I do. Wants to know how to delete the first semester classes from the roster. Sandy said she could help Tony with that. I'm honestly not 100% sure how to do that.
So you have to, essentially you have to archive your course. Let's see, let me go back to Remind. Let's go, oh, I guess I got out of Remind. I'll go back into Remind here, and let's say I have this test class here with my people in it. I think it's under settings where I can archive it. Yes. So you can come down here and archive the class right here. And it no longer appears in your list. And I do not believe this happens automatically. Because we've only been using it this year, I don't know if there's a process like a PowerSchool rollover kind of thing when we have all those new classes, if it automatically archives the old one, we'll have to ask them in training. But if there is one that maybe you're not using anymore and you just want to get rid of it, you just go to the class, go to that settings tab, and then click archive. Okay. Any other questions? I don't want to keep you if I know everyone's probably anxious to go spend the last 5 minutes of sunshine. Okay, doesn't look like it. I will have a recording of this, and I'll share the link to the recording for everyone. But it'll be a couple days because I'm going to make sure that it's uploaded somewhere where you can get it and see it, rather than it just being on my computer. But I will have a recording of this if you need to go back and refer to it. And then look for our announcement here in the near future on when we're going to do the training from Remind. That's more of a deep dive into it. And like I said, make sure you start formulating some questions and send those ideas over to us on how you want to, what you want to have that deeper dive into. And I guess in the meantime, just start playing with it and using it and let us know what you think. Okay, well, I appreciate everyone for jumping on. I don't teach a lot. I do some teacher trainings like this, but it always reminds me when I think about the amount of work that I put into just trying to get all this information together. And I have to tip my hat to you teachers that are out there doing this, not just for one class. Once in a while, you're doing this every day, all day long. I have to commend you. I know it's a tremendous amount of work, and we in tech, we just want to support you and make sure that you have all the tools that you need, and just let us know if there is anything, and we'll be in touch. Well, as soon as we get off the call here, there will be a follow-up survey. I'd like to know what you thought of the training and if there's ways we can improve it. All right. Thanks, everyone.